Once upon a time, there was a young girl named Norma. She was 17 years old. Norma was popularly known by men as Egovinonwa. This was because she had a very beautiful skin and she was very attractive as well. All the men in Agbani village, both single and married, wanted her. On the other hand, all the women in Agbani village hated Norma because their husbands had eyes for her. Some of the young ladies in the village envied her and constantly asked their chi why they were not created to look like her. Norma was a very troubled young lady, and because she didn't know how to express her pain, she chose rebellion as her outlet and became notorious for sleeping around with very rich men who offered her lots of money. Most of the men she slept with were married, so she became a target for a lot of women who already had animosity toward her for sleeping with their husbands. Countless times, Norma had been waylaid by different women who beat her thoroughly. Initially, when she was being attacked and beaten, Norma would just cry and try to break free. But as it became frequent, she learned to defend herself. So instead of crying and struggling while she was being beaten, she would fight back with everything she had. One time, she got home almost naked because the women who attacked her had torn her clothes. This made her father very sad and angry with her. But Norma didn't care. She had little or no respect for her father. "Why have you decided to disrespect me in the manner that you do?" her father had scolded. "The people of Agbani no longer have respect for me." Norma hissed at her father and walked away. "I am talking to you, Norma," her father said. She stopped, turned around, and said to her father, "The people of Agbani never had respect for you, Mazimbakwe." "Respect?" she said in anger. "Oh, now you want to be respected. Why, Papa? Is it because you joined the church and now carry Bible up and down? Oh, or is it because you changed your name from Mazimbakwe to Brother Paul?" Please, Papa, stop deceiving yourself. Every sensible human being in Agbani knows how irresponsible you have been. They know that it was all the beating Mama received from you that led to her death. You killed her. You killed her, she cried. And for that, I will never forgive you. She ran out of the house. Mazimbakwe sat down with tears in his eyes. Her daughter was right. If he had treated Ijuwa better, she would still be alive and Norma would have turned out better. Norma wasn't always rebellious. She was still grieving the death of her mother, who passed on 7 years ago. Ijuwa had died as a result of internal bleeding, which was not discovered early enough. Ijuwa was a very beautiful woman, just like her daughter. She was a very pleasant, easygoing person and got along with almost everyone in the community. But unlike her 3 siblings, she was unlucky in marriage. Mazimbakwe, as he was popularly known in Agbani, was a very rich businessman, and like most of the men he hung out with, was very irresponsible. Every day at the end of business, Mazimbakwe would hang out with his friends at Mama Nonso's shop, eating pepper soup and drinking palm wine. He would come home almost every night drunk. Ijuwa had learned from experience that whenever her husband was drunk, it was best to avoid him at all cost, or she would end up receiving slaps, kicks, and punches. Sometimes, no matter how hard she tried to avoid him, she ended up unlucky. She had tried to protect her daughter, Norma, as best as she could, but sometimes Norma would end up beaten too. On two occasions, Ijuwa packed her things, took her daughter, and ran back to her father's house. But her parents had advised her that leaving her husband wasn't a wise decision. They said she should tolerate, respect, and be patient with her husband, that he would change with time. Unfortunately, Ijuwa had died due to the complications of eternal bleeding 3 days after her husband had thoroughly beaten her. Norma could still remember every single slap, punch, and kick her mother had received. She was 10 years old when her mother died, but her mother's pain and suffering were still so vivid to her imagination. She hated her late grandparents for making them go back to her father each time. One time, her aunties Ada, Ugo, and Mma had come to Agbani to rescue her mother, but her mother had refused to go with them, and worse still, her father had chased them out with a cutlass and then thoroughly beaten her mother for inviting them. Norma was aware that she wasn't living a decent life, and she was also aware that it could cost her dearly someday. But she couldn't bring herself to stop. Moreover, she enjoyed the pleasure of seeing her father in so much pain and regret. She wanted him to suffer just as much as her mother suffered. Even the church his father now attends had restricted him from holding any position. They said he could not be trusted with any responsibility since he was not able to discipline his daughter. 5 days later, Norma returned to her father's house after that outburst. It was a pattern with her. Whenever her father tried to confront her, she would run away and return days later. She knew her father was trying to reach out for forgiveness and reconciliation, but she wasn't going to give him that pleasure. When she entered the house, she found her father kneeling on the floor, crying and praying. She stood for a while, watching him. Then she went into her room. How did she get to this place? She thought to herself. She felt so lost. Sleeping with all those men gave her temporary comfort, but it did not heal or soothe the pain she felt in her heart. She has ruined her life, all because she wanted vengeance for the death of her mother. Her father lived his past in ignorance, but now he seems to be a changed person. Why is it so hard to forgive him? She thought. Norma screamed and busted out in tears. Years of grief, pain, and anger pouring out with every single teardrop. She hadn't cried in years. All that pain, bottled up inside, had eaten deep into her soul. She felt a warm embrace. Her father was holding her and crying, begging her for forgiveness. Norma reached out and embraced her father, something that he had never done all her life. His embrace felt different from that she had ever gotten from any man. For a while, they both held on to each other and just wept. When they were both calm, Norma looked up to see his father's eyes filled with apology and love. I am so sorry for all you and your mother had to go through. And you are right, Norma. My recklessness killed your mother. I wish I could say that to her in person, but I see her in you. And I believe that if you forgive me, she will forgive me too. Norma apologized too for all the disrespect and pain she had brought to her father. It is not my place to carry out vengeance, but God's. I'm so sorry, Papa. For the first time in her life, Norma felt peace and a heavy weight lifted off her. She told her father about her pregnancy. She had no idea who it belonged to. Her father promised to take care of Norma and the baby. He promised they will be fine.